Ever tried to watch an action movie and felt the explosions just thud without that punch? Or tried to crank up your favorite bass-heavy tracks, only to get a wobble that sounds more like a cheap speaker rattling on a bookshelf? It's a tiny but infuriating gap. You want that real, room-shaking low end, but most subwoofers either sound weak, chew up power, or look like they belong in a garage rather than your living room. The good news is there's a sub that actually bridges that gap without turning your audio setup into a power-hungry monster. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. I've been hunting for a sub that can give me that depth without breaking the bank or taking over the whole space. When you finally hear the Klipsch Reference Premiere RP-1600SW, it's like the missing piece of the puzzle clicks in place. First off, the RP-1600SW uses a 16-inch high excursion driver that's been ground up from the inside out, meaning the cone can move more air per cycle. In plain terms, that translates to a tighter, more controlled bass response whether you're watching a thunderstorm on a streaming service or listening to a live concert recording. I tried it with the latest superhero film, and the low-frequency rumble of the city chase scene didn't just shake the couch, it resonated through the floor, giving a sense of immersion that a stock TV speaker just can't match. The built-in Class D amplifier is another piece of the puzzle. It's high efficiency, so it draws less electricity than a comparable amp would, yet it still delivers enough headroom to keep the bass clean even at high volumes. I ran a backyard movie night with the sub cranked to 80%, and the amp stayed cool the whole time, no whining or overheating, which is a relief if you're planning on using it for longer sessions. One of the biggest frustrations for many buyers is having a sub that overwhelms the rest of the system, making the mids and highs feel distant. The RP-1600SW is calibrated for balanced performance. The built-in digital signal processing tailors the output to the room, flattening peaks that could otherwise blast you in one corner and disappear in another. I set it up in a modest-sized living room, and after a quick auto-calibration, the bass felt even across the room. Even when I moved the couch a few feet away from the sub, the low end stayed consistent, so there's no bass tunnel effect. Installation often feels like a chore, especially when you have to wrestle with cables and settings. Klipsch makes it straightforward. The sub comes with a single line level input, a simple volume knob, and a phase switch that lets you line it up with your main speakers without diving into complex menus. The design upgrades, like the modern grille and a sleek black cabinet, let it sit discreetly under a TV stand or against a wall without looking out of place. I placed it under my wall-mounted screen, and the sub's low profile meant I didn't have to sacrifice legroom or aesthetic. If you're a music lover, the sub's ability to reproduce the low end of a bass guitar or an organ is worth noting. I fed a 70-year-old vinyl record of a jazz big band into my system, and the sub gave those double bass notes a richness that felt almost tactile. It's not just about turning up the volume. The low frequencies sit underneath the music, providing a foundation that lets the higher instruments breathe. Another practical benefit is the remote control. It's not a fancy app, but a simple IR remote that lets you adjust volume, phase, and low-pass filter without getting up. When you're in the middle of a binge-watch session and the bass needs a quick tweak, you can do it without pause. I found the low-pass filter especially handy when switching from movies to gaming. Tightening it a notch reduced any muddiness, while still keeping the explosions punchy. Now, let's talk about the pros and cons that matter when you're weighing a purchase. The strengths I've seen are the genuinely deep and tight bass that stays disciplined, the efficient Class D amp that runs cool even at high output, and the user-friendly setup that gets you from box to boom in minutes. On the downside, the sub size means it needs a little breathing room. You'll want to